Could Kansas stun Texas this week? Both of these Big 12 teams are walking into this game 4-0, and Texas is a 17-point favorite going into this matchup. Now, Kansas, they got a really great quarterback and Jalon motherfreaking Daniels. And if you don't know who Jalon Daniels is, you need to watch some highlights because this is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. And before he got injured last year, Kansas was 5-0. They were ranked in the top 25, and he was a legitimate contender for the Heisman Trophy. Now, this season, Kansas is going into this game, once again, ranked inside the top 25, and they got one of the best teams in the Big 12 this season. Their offense has averaged over 30 points per game in every game that they played in so far, and their defense looks way better this season than what it did last year, but how are they going to handle themselves up against the behemoth that is Texas? Because Texas right now, they're on a war path. They pretty much have obliterated nearly every single team they played, minus Bama. They didn't blow them out, but they did beat Alabama by a pretty fair margin. And this is a Texas team that doesn't really have too many weaknesses at all. This is a talented team at every single position. Good quarterback play, great offensive line, great running backs, great receivers, great defense. Meanwhile, Kansas, you go into this game, and if you're going to pull off the upset, you're going to need to be able to match Texas point for point. Now, I think that Kansas, they can put points on Texas defense. Now, I don't know if they can put up 30 on Texas defense, but I would be a little bit surprised if Texas just came into this game and they just neutralized this Kansas offense, because Kansas has one of the most experienced offenses in all of college football. They got a veteran offensive line. They got a veteran group of receivers, veteran quarterback, and running back. So the experience is there. And they are going to be going on the road, playing in a hostile environment. We know it's tough to win in Austin. We get that. But when you have an experienced team, you should be able to go into big road matchups like this and be able to keep your composure, not have a lot of penalties, not have a lot of big game-breaking mistakes. My thing with Kansas really is going to be defensively, how are they going to hold up? Do they have enough size to match up with Texas up front? And even if this game does end up being a shootout, if let's say Texas offense has the ball in their hands to end this game and they got to go down the field and win the game, you like Texas' chances against this Kansas defense. Now, Kansas offensively against Texas offense, let's say this is a one-possession game and Jalon Daniels has the ball in his hands with a chance to win the game for Kansas. Do you think that Texas defense can hold up in that department? Because at that point, if Texas defense gives up over 30 to Kansas, then you got to think that Kansas has a pretty good chance to win this game. I mean, they've already done kept up with your offense, and defensively, Texas hasn't been able to slow you down. So if you give Jalon Daniels opportunity to win this game and they need a go-ahead touchdown to win it, I like Kansas' chances. I really am a big fan of Jalon Daniels. And Kansas, I think with the experience that they have offensively, they can make this game very interesting. Now, in terms of them being able to pull off the upset, I still lean Texas. I don't know if Texas will cover that 17. I do think that Texas can win this game by at least 10 points or more. But I do think that Kansas offensively, just with the talent they have and the experience they have, I do think their offense can be formidable against Texas. And I know you Longhorn fans are going to make it seem like Kansas ain't a great team, but when you look at Kansas compared to the rest of the Big 12, I think it's fair to say that this is a top 4 team in this conference this year, and you very well could end up playing Kansas again if you're Texas in the Big 12 championship game this year. I think that they have a good enough team that they could beat nearly anybody in this conference. You see, Texas is just a way better team than everybody else in the Big 12. It's not really close. Even the gap between them and Oklahoma is pretty considerable when you look at the talent discrepancy. But other than Texas, I think that most teams in the Big 12 are pretty evenly matched in terms of talent. Like, Texas has the big talent discrepancy, and then second behind them is Oklahoma. And then after that, everybody else is pretty much on the same level. When you got a superstar quarterback like Jalon Daniels, and as long as you have a solid team around him, a solid offensive line with some solid pass catchers, I don't really think there's too many games that you don't have a chance at being able to stay competitive in. We saw Colorado get blown out by Oregon last week, but that's because even though they had Shedeur Sanders, they didn't have a great offensive line. Their offensive line got obliterated. If Kansas can't handle themselves on the offensive line and give Jalon Daniels time to throw the football, they can hang with Texas, at least for the first 3 quarters, until Texas ultimately is able to pull away in the 4th quarter potentially. Kansas has a very solid roster, but do they have enough depth to last the full 4-quarter game with Texas? And Jalon Daniels, if Kansas is going to win this game, he's going to need to have the best performance ever. Up to this point, Jalon Daniels has delivered some really masterclass efforts, but this is going to have to be the best game of his Kansas Jayhawk career. This isn't going to be one of those games where Jalon Daniels can win just having a good performance. He needs to have a superstar performance. We need to see the Jalon Daniels that we saw last year before he suffered that elbow injury when he was a Heisman contender. He still has played at a really high level. He still, in my opinion, looks like one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football, but I haven't really seen Jalon Daniels have one of those superstar performances like I saw him put up all last season. If Kansas can have a great game out of Jalon Daniels and this offense and the supporting cast that around them can be able to have good productive days also, and they can put points up on Texas defense, they got a shot at winning this game, but I just don't know if Texas defense is going to allow Kansas to hit 30 in this game. That's really going to be the magical number for Kansas. If they want to be able to stay around in this game, you're going to have to be able to keep up with Texas offense, because I'm pretty confident that Texas offense is going to have no problem putting points up on Kansas defense. Kansas defense definitely has improved tremendously. Their defense was god-awful last year. You wonder if they even knew that defense was a thing. But this season, even though this defense has come around and they do look better, this is one of the most prolific offenses in all of college football. You got Isaiah Nayer, you got Jordan Whittington, you also have, who's that receiver? They just got a bunch of receivers, man. They're so stacked that it's receivers that I can't even think about, like Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell. It's just weapon on top of weapon with this offense. So for Kansas defensively, if their offense can't go point for point with Texas and they can at least get the 30, I don't think that Kansas is really going to be able to keep this game within one possession. Texas has a really good defense this year, and they had a really great performance against Alabama. And I do think that there is going to be a game this season where Texas defense kind of is a little bit off. Is this going to be the game? Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. I think that Texas this year definitely should be able to run the table in the Big 10 or in the Big 12, They're the most talented team in this conference. They have been for the last couple of years, but they now are starting to execute at an insanely high level. I don't think this is the Texas team that we've seen of the past where, yeah, they got the talent, but they don't show up consistently. They'll have a good performance one week and then come out a little bit rusty the next week. Like, this is a consistent Texas team. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they don't really play down the competition. At least we haven't seen them play down the competition yet. Could this be the first occurrence that it happens? Maybe, but if Kansas wants to win this game, their defense is going to be able to have to slow down one of the best offenses in college football, and I don't really think that's going to be able to happen. Even if this offense can go point for point with Texas, your defense is still going to have to get a key stop, and I trust Texas defense more to get a key stop than I do Kansas defense. So could Kansas keep this game close? Potentially they could. But I do ultimately think that Texas probably wins this game by at least 14 points or more. I think Kansas can put some points up offensively. I can see them getting to 24-27, but seeing them crack 30 would kind of surprise me. And Texas defense will be tested in this game because this is the best quarterback that Texas has played up to this point, and it probably will be the best quarterback that they play for the remainder of this season. And my guy Jackson Wages in the comment section says Texas played down to Wyoming for 3.5 quarters. Yes, they did, but you got to remember that this was coming off a big win. after they beat Alabama. So, of course, they were kind of going to play a little bit down to Wyoming after coming off a big win like that. But against Kansas, this is a team that's ranked inside the top 25. They got a really good quarterback. I don't think anybody on Texas is taking Kansas likely. Unless Kansas can get a couple of big stops defensively, I don't know if they can pull off this upset. I just think that this is a game that you're relying on Kansas to just match Texas point for point, and they definitely could do it, but with how good Texas defense is, I think they're capable of being able to get a stop or two. Even if Kansas goes off offensively, I still think that Texas can get more stops defensively than what Kansas can, and that's why I ultimately think that the chances of an upset occurring in this game are pretty small. I do think that Kansas has a chance, but if I had to give you a confidence level about Kansas being able to win this game 1 through 5, I probably got to go 1, maybe 2 if I'm being a little bit generous, because they do got Jalon Daniels. And if this team around them does play good and Jalon Daniels has a superstar performance, they can stay around in this game and keep it competitive. But I don't know if their defense can get a couple of key stops against this Texas offense. But we will see. Texas host Kansas this Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on ABC. They are a 17-point favorite heading into this game.